Finding a ship's bell is a moment that almost every diver dreams of. But in this case, it was also tinged with sadness. By confirming that this was the wreck of HMS Negro, we'd also located the final resting place of 51 sailors who drowned in horrendous conditions and freezing waters after their destroyer was involved in an accident. Even though this was wartime, there was no enemy involvement, making it particularly poignant. The wreck is in an extremely remote location. It's north of Fair Isle, and to get there we had to travel for 2 days on a liveaboard dive boat from Scapa Flow. No one has ever dived this site, so it's entirely possible that it could be nothing. We've got information from the UK Hydrographic Office and 2 very old side scan images dating back to the 1980s. Kevin Heath from the Lost in Waters Deep website has spent years researching the fate of HMS Negro, and he's convinced that this is her final resting place. It's 100 metres deep. The water's about 10 degrees, maybe a bit less on the bottom. We're very remote and a long way from help. This is going to be a big dive. People who've watched my other videos may recognise this setup. It's my DiveX Piranha scooter with a GoPro and 2 video lights. That's what's producing the video that you see for the rest of this dive. I also had a paralens mounted to the side of my head. Unfortunately it didn't want to play, so I didn't get anything useful from that. Diving with me on the scooter in front is Rick Ayrton. He's a brilliant underwater photographer, and I've had the very great privilege of diving with him on some of my best dives. All the photos that you can see above this video are his. They're just a small sample of the many fabulous photos that he took on this dive. If you haven't done so, you should definitely look him up on Facebook. He posts a continuous stream of fabulous photos from deep technical dives, and they're well worth a few minutes of anybody's time. On a 100-metre dive, your bottom time is really limited, so it's important that you make the most out of it. We were really fortunate that Kevin Heath had managed to find the plans for HMS Negro, and we'd studied them in detail before we went down. Wrecks of warships are always distinctive, but thin, fast, sleek destroyers like HMS Negro have many features that make them easy to identify. We were particularly looking for armaments and the 4 Jarrow boilers that are easy to recognise due to their inverted V shape. As always with dives of this depth, it's taken a long time to get to the bottom. You can see that Rick has beaten me to it. He's busy tying the shot line in with a waster, and then he's going to release the pellet to let the divers above know that they were able to get in. We're using a slightly modified technique this time. Rather than sending the waster up through the water, it's actually looped around the shot line. We'd had a problem on a previous dive, so we're giving this technique a go. While he's doing that, I'm attaching my strobes, leaving the scooter and the video camera to dangle in the water, which is why the video footage seems a bit odd. I've got it back again. Unfortunately, it seems as though I've knocked the video camera, which is why it's videoing a bit of the front of the scooter. Fortunately, it's not completely ruined the video, and you can see that this is going to be an incredible dive. Conditions are stunning, visibility is great, there's a ton of life on this wreck. You can also see that there's lots and lots of machinery for what is a small wreck. This is really distinctive for military vessels. They're not built for carrying cargo, so every space has got something in it. Off to my left is actually the first Jarrow boiler, but you're going to get a better view of them in the video later on. I'm just waiting for Rick to sort himself out, and once he's done that, we're going to head off to the left, which I've already figured is towards the bow. There's loads of big fish. I'd love to tell you what they are. Unfortunately, anyone who's seen my other videos will know that that isn't my forte. Right, we're on the move and we're starting to head towards the bow. This is going to be on the port side of the wreck. You'll see in a second all the wreckage is off to my right hand side, off to the left, pretty much nothing. It's absolutely beautiful, although that's not what I'm looking at. What you can see there is another Jarrow boiler. If my video was pointed up a bit further, it would be really clear, but I haven't noticed that it's pointing down yet. So, we're going to crack on, keep on moving forward. Don't worry, it's not going to be that long before I realise the video isn't doing exactly what I want it to do. You can see that there's a gap between two boilers here. There's a Jarrow boiler on the right and one on the left. That's us up to 3 at the moment. We know there's 4 on HMS Negro, so already I'm getting pretty excited. You'll also see that there's a load of line on this wreck. Fishing line, old fishing nets. Easy to see why with all the fish, but it's definitely something that we've got to be concerned about and making sure that we avoid. As I continue to move forward, the wreck starts to drop down to the seabed. There's a lot less machinery here. That's pretty much what you'd expect with the bow, which has got accommodation and messes in and stuff. Also see down there the first of 2 toilets. I knew from the plans that there are toilets in the bow area of HMS Negro. Just in the top there, that looks like a door. There's loads of fish, but this has got to be the bridge area. I'm looking for anything that might identify it as a bridge, maybe a telegraph or a helm, and then bump, I've spotted it. I'm not sure if you have, but there, just at the top of the video, just going out of shot, that is the bell. That's the sound of me getting really excited through my rebreathe the breathing loop and telling Rick that I found the bell. That moment is just unbelievable. I can't describe how good it is. You can see I'm now coming up to it, trying to see if there's anything on it. Rick's coming over. He's got his stills camera. He's making sure he records it. And I'm just moving away so that I can get some video of Rick photographing the bell. It's really interesting. At the time, I was completely and utterly focused on the bell, and I ignored all the other things that were around it. It's only now, looking at the video, that you can see how many other parts of the wreck are just in this small area. Obviously there's all that prominent sort of copper tubing, but there's a brass window there from the probably from the wheelhouse. There's a porthole. There is a sort of brass circular thing which may well be part of the ship's wheel, part of the helm. Over here there's 2 of those toilets. I've already mentioned the door to the left, but when you look at it in a moment you'll see that the handle is on it. Obviously the ling is kind of getting in the way, but yeah, that's clearly a door. There's a handle and there's a grill at the bottom of it. Everything's covered in net, as we've already mentioned, but there's a whole load of other bits and pieces. Rick and me are talking. You can just about hear it, trying to decide what we're going to do. I think the bell is kind of slightly buried there, and we decide that the bell would be better off put on top of the wreck. Not only is it less likely to get buried, but it will make for some better photos. And what we really want to do is make sure that we can clearly see the name on it. We've agreed that nothing would come off this wreck. It's the last resting place of 51 sailors. And even though my personal view is that that bell will be better on the surface in a museum, it's going to stay down there. Some people may think that even moving artefacts such as the bell is something that shouldn't happen, and obviously that's a view that I respect, and people are entirely entitled to it. But for me, the important thing here is the record. These people on this wreck have been lost for over 100 years. By diving it, by identifying it, by confirming the location, their last resting place will no longer be unknown. For anybody who has a relative that was on HMS Negro, they'll finally know where that person is. So whilst I'm moving the bell and putting it somewhere a little bit more prominent, the scooter's just resting on the seabed, or rather the wreck, and is videoing almost randomly bits of wreckage, but you can see just how much there is, what's left down here. Right, the bell's up on the top now. Rick's moving in for a photo. I've put it so that the words and the letters are facing really clearly so that he can get the best possible image. I'm pretty convinced it says Negro on there and 1915. The crown on the top of the bell is classic Royal Navy. There's all those Jarrow boilers. I'm pretty convinced that we've cracked this, but getting a really good high quality image is so important, because that's what we'll be using to give to the Royal Navy. That's what we'll be using to give to anyone else who's interested, and that is what Rick is currently providing for us. I'm staying in position with my video lights. It'll just help with illumination, help with the quality of the photo that Rick is getting. And it's also just an amazing thing to see. As I said at the beginning of this video, this sort of moment is what divers dream about. Certainly what I dream about. Diving an unknown wreck, identifying it, finding the bell. That is just a great, great feeling. Unfortunately, I'm spending too much time enjoying the feeling and not enough time thinking what I should be really doing is videoing the bell from all sorts of different angles rather than just the one. Maybe it's that I'm thinking that Rick is taking some more photos or something like that. But I'm just sat here in one position. I don't know why. I think in these sorts of situations, there's so much adrenaline circulating around your bloodstream that I'm not really thinking sensibly. I'm not standing back objectively and thinking, how should I be recording this? If I just moved slightly to my left there, I'd get all the words. You wouldn't have half of it. But anyway, I don't. And fortunately, Rick, he comes in with his camera, and you've already seen some of his photos. They're absolutely brilliant. And it's really clear and easy to see the word Negro and 1915. So we end up with the evidence we need to conclusively prove that this is the wreck. Well, I finally had enough of that, and I'm moving on to the rest of the wreck. I've already been over here. You recognise that ling. I think what I'm doing now is I'm just going to go forward and have a look at the bow of the wreck. Probably looking for the gun, really. That would be the obvious thing. It should be kind of about where I am now. Now, we had a big debate afterwards. I thought the thing to the left there was the gun. And you'll see later on I come back and I video it. A couple of other people disagreed with that. They think the gun is forward, has fallen forward, so about where you can see Rick is now, off to his right. That's where they judged it to be. But you can see there's not much left of the wreck at all. Just the hawse pipe there. And presumably off the front there a bit of an anchor. Rick's getting in my way. He always likes to get the best possible shots, which is fine because his are stunning. And that's what he's doing. I'm providing a bit of video light for him, which is something that any photographer will tell you is a useful thing to do. So I've had enough right at the bow, and I'm heading back now, mainly because I want to go and video this thing that I think is the gun. Now, as I say, there was disagreement. I'm still not 100% convinced that isn't the gun, but hey ho. A serving naval officer told me otherwise, so I'll bow to their judgment. For those of you interested in such things, There's a pair of wolffish off to the left-hand side. I guess I'm not as much of an ignoramus as I suggest about fish, but could be just that they're really distinctive. So this is back on the bridge area again. I'm just videoing all the bits and pieces. There's the thing that I think is the gun. My naval officer friend tells me that it's just a pipe, so it's a bit of a mistake by me. And then I'm kind of aware that there's a whole load of the wreck that we've not looked at yet, and obviously we're 100 metres, so bottom time's running out. Back over to the other side. I'm slightly obsessed with the toilets. Frankly, this isn't the best use of my time, so I need to be doing other things. I'm now heading back on the starboard side. You can just see the strobes flashing away in the distance. You can also see the next two divers coming down along the top of the wreck. I'm about to get very excited and tell them that we found the bell. Unfortunately, I'm also shining my video lights in their face, so they can't see the hand gestures I'm making, and therefore they believe when we talk about it on the surface that they found the bell and were completely unaware that we'd seen it. That's the top of the Jarrow boiler there. I think that's probably number 2. There's a whole load of other bits of machinery down there. As I say, vessels like this are just chock full of machinery. And this is back at the shot line. This is the break in the wreck. So you probably saw from the side scan earlier on that the wreck is in 2 bits. We put the shot on the bigger bit, which we thought was the bow, but always we had the idea that we would try and get over to the other bit. So what I'm doing now is just going off into the sand, looking around, seeing if I can see any more wreckage, seeing if I can make that jump over to it. We knew it was about 20 or 30 metres. In conditions like this where the viz is great, that isn't such a problem, but if the viz had been poorer, it would have been potentially quite a challenging thing to do to try and go and find the other bit of the wreck. Fortunately, it stands out really well here, and there it is there. I found the next bit of the wreck. What isn't immediately obvious to me is actually that this is the stern and those underneath it are the props. So the stern of the wreck is 180 degrees out of orientation from the bow, which I think just gives an indication of the fact that it must have been blown in half at the surface and then fell down in 2 separate pieces. So here I am on top of it, and once again there's loads of stuff. There's ammunition, portholes, various other bits of brass things that I can't recognise. I'm really aware that my time is limited and I've got to try and make the most of it. And this, I'm just about to realise, is the emergency steering section. There is the helm. Next to it is a coffee grinder Royal Naval Telegraph. In front of it on the seabed, there's the compass bowl. There's a whole load of other bits and pieces. There's a steering wheel from the helm. I'm looking back. The big thing on the left, that's the coffee grinder telegraph. The thing behind it is the actual helm. I mean, it's just incredible to see things like that. So rare. That there you can see is a wheel. There must have been a gun or probably a torpedo tube on that. Although I haven't actually spotted the torpedo tube yet. Don't know what that is there. Maybe just a bit of net wrapped in on itself and standing vertically. Once again, I'm just going around the wreck trying to take in as much as I can. It's overwhelming how much there is to see down here. And you know what you really want is a lot of time to study it and to go into real depth. Unfortunately, just don't have it on a 100-metre dive. So I'm only going to get one shot at this dive. So I'm just trying to get as much as I possibly can. I know I've got the video running. I know I'm going to be able to review the video in slow time at the surface. Come over here. Don't know what this thing is initially. I look at it again and I'm pretty convinced that this is some sort of valve mechanism. It's off the side of the wreck, clearly big and brass. Off to my right here, something else that looks interesting, possibly part of the condenser. When I go back and look at the plans, that would seem to be correct. I'm going along here once again, just looking at what I can. It's incredible how many fish there are down here and how big they are. Clearly they've never seen a diver or a human being before. They almost have no sense of fear. Interested probably in the video lights. Their life must have been spent in darkness. I'm sure anybody who's a fisherman is currently salivating at the prospect of fishing this wreck, but that's not my thing. I'm scootering around looking for more artifacts. I'm certain there's going to be some other great things. I mean, you can see around here how much brass there is. Even though this vessel was built in wartime, the amount of resources that are spent on it are just incredible. You can see there's portholes and there's wheels and there's various other interesting things with prisms in, you know, all made of brass, all really nice quality, and all still on the wreck. And then I spot this thing over here. It's a footplate. This would have been on the side of the ship. So when people, particularly important ones, were getting on and off the ship, this is the very first thing they'd have stepped on. You can see it's got the name Negro on it. I'm really, really excited. Not only have we seen the bell, but we've now found a named footplate as well. I'm shouting at Rick because I know he's going to want to get some photos of this. In the meantime, I'm just enjoying the moment. I've never seen one of these before, and I probably will never see one again, because diving a wreck like this is so rare. It's such a privilege. Rick's over at the emergency steering station still. I'm going to have to go and tell him that this is better. This is better than a helm. This is better than a coffee grinder telegraph. He needs to come over and get the photos. And as you can see, he's come over and he's going to do exactly that. So I'm pleased that I've given him the heads up and he's not going to miss it. As a good photographer's assistant, I'm going to stay in the area with my video lights, just continue to illuminate it while he comes in and gets his photos. You can see there he is, he's doing that. He's got that big fisheye lens, getting really close, getting a really good high quality image. Now, we've been down here quite a long time at this point in the dive. Need to be starting to think about what happens next. Oh, can't miss that though. That's a pedestal, possibly with a compass bowl on the top. Just incredible to see these kind of things on a wreck. But time's limited, need to get moving, need to keep on moving. And as you can see, I'm heading back towards the stern, back towards the strobes, which you can see flashing over there. No idea what some of this stuff is, but there's all sorts of interesting things down here. I just wish I had a lot longer to get around this, to find out all this stuff. You can just see there's so much on this. The other divers are heading over to the wreck. I'm pleased that we've shown them the way to the stern as well, and they follow us, and they're going to go over there. They're going to see all the things that we saw, which is absolutely brilliant. Meanwhile, I'm scooting back over to the other bit of the wreck. There you can see the shot line where we tied it on right at the beginning, because our time unfortunately is done. So we're going to start heading up. First things first though, need to get my strobes and have a final look back at the wreck site. It's just been an unbelievably amazing dive. To kind of see the things that we have seen in such a short period of time, to have conclusively identified a wreck, to have given the relatives of those missing people closure so they know exactly where they are. It's, as I say, it's these kind of moments are what you live for as a diver. But what I'm living for now is getting myself back up from 100 metres to my first deco stop, and that's where I'm going now. You can see us ascending. Rick's ahead of me. There's a few more strobes on the shot from when we arrived, which belonged to other divers, and there we are heading up. You can see it's light above us as opposed to the pitch black that it was on the bottom, but the viz is just absolutely stunning. You've seen my deco profile already for this dive. You know I've got a good 2.5 hours to do before I'm getting out of the water. This is really close to the end of the dive. My decompression is almost complete. I thought it might be of interest to show you the decompression setup that we've got. There's a trapeze with bars at 6 meters and 9 meters, and at each depth there's a cylinder of breathing gas, 100% and 80% respectively. The reality is, for a dive like this, it's almost impossible to carry enough gas to complete a bailout ascent, so having lots available is really important. Dives like this don't happen without a great surface team, and we were really fortunate on this dive to have the use of MV Clasina with Bob Anderson as her skipper. They're an incredibly capable duo who in recent years have helped divers explore some of the most significant and adventurous wrecks in the northern UK. It's great to get back on board the boat at the end of a really long, demanding dive. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. As always, please like, comment, tell your mates. Hopefully you'll subscribe, and I'll see you for the next one. Thank you.